Hello, greetings, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thank you very much for tuning in to our fourth multicast on X and YouTube, now also streaming on LinkedIn. Today is Thursday, the 1st of May, and if you're just hearing about us for the first time, you can learn more by heading over to our YouTube channel and listen back to the previous episodes of the cheqdcasts. And you can also learn more by visiting our website at cheqd.io. Just before I get started, as I always do with these things, I just want to put forward our disclaimer, and that's about our utility token check. It is a utility token, it is not a security. We are not offering an investment opportunity, and nothing we discuss today is to be taken as financial advice. Mr. Producer, could you load the intro, please? So today is episode 4 of the cheqdcast, and today I'm joined by co-founders Fraser Edwards and Mr. Anka Banerjee. Sal, could you please bring in Fraser so we can just do a quick introduction, just for people who may not be familiar with who he is. Hi Fraser, how are you doing? You well?
Good. I mean, I don't know if it's similar up where you are, but it is beautiful down here. So, yeah, catching a bit of a tan.
I am actually thankful to my studio manager, who's just put a lovely aircon unit in the corner of the room over there, because as the sun comes over here, it is literally blistering, and I'm very sensitive to the heat, so I'm thankful for that. But yes, it is very warm up here again.
I was about to make some joke about that bald head of yours, but I'll leave it.
Fraser, just for those who may not know who you are, could you please just give a brief introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. For those who haven't heard this before, hi, Fraser, CEO at Cheqd, one of the co-founders. Prior to this, spent about 6 to 7 years at Accenture doing a range of tech, but mostly kind of blockchain and self-sovereign ID and biometrics and AI. So a bit of a jack of all trades, hopefully not a master of none.
Lovely, thank you. It's been quite a busy month, to say the least, and there's a lot I want to talk about, so we've got a bunch of questions. But just before we do, Fraser, I just want to bring in Anka. So thanks for checking in for now. Sal, if you could just take out Fraser and bring in Anka, please.
Hi,
Anka, how are you?
good to be here.
Good, thanks for joining us again. Same again, Anka, could you please just give a brief introduction for those who may not be aware of who you are?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Anka Banerjee. I'm the CTO and co-founder at Cheqd. Fraser and I met working at the same company, Accenture, where we worked on blockchain and identity projects. And I've since then worked in a couple of other identity startups and scale-ups as well. And I do wear a couple of industry hats in this space. I'm the co-chair of the Decentralized Identity Foundation Technical Steering Committee, which is one of the standards bodies that works in DID and SSI.
Indeed. Quite a few feathers indeed, Anka. Thank you very much for the introduction. Sal, if you could just also please bring in Fraser. There's a couple of things I want to start on the first topic where I think there's going to be a lot of value for both of them, and it's around the token burn. So for those who may not be aware, following the recent merger, well, I'm saying recent, time flies, it's actually gone quite quick now. It's actually flown over. It was like the middle of the year last year when we actually originally announced that. But we minted some tokens in order to facilitate the merger. It was about 52.8 million tokens, if I remember correctly, Fraser, of which we distributed around 50 and then burned 2.1 million tokens on the 9th of April. And if you're not familiar with the concept of burning, essentially the tokens get sent off to a location never to return. Looks like we were pretty accurate on the maths for that distribution side of things, Fraser, right? I mean, how did you get to those numbers? Was it just pretty straightforward?
Well, conveniently, we'd set an end date, and then it was just monitoring how much. So we obviously minted that number based on the given ratio. We then just monitored what went out, looked at the delta that was remaining, and I think credit to both the doc team, but also the likes of yourself, Eduardo, Teresa. Like, we made a really big push in terms of comms, and so there wasn't a scenario where, as far as I'm aware, pretty much everyone has been aware of this since the middle of last year.
Yes.
So we really didn't have anyone left. And I think one of the big things that did help us was the main migrations were via the exchanges. So that just managed a massive chunk of it. So it really simplified things on our side. And then it was basically just a case of getting past the deadline that we set, and then made the maths super, super easy. It was just a case of mopping up, doing a final couple where just a little nuance was obviously Doc had to keep some number of tokens over on their side to keep the network running.
Of course.
Once that was done, we could move those across and get it all finalized and closed down. So it's nice to have that all over and done with. Means that we can, like, as smooth as it was still a lot of effort behind the scenes. It's nice to have that done so we can go and focus our efforts elsewhere.
Indeed. Thank you, Fraser. So, Anka, I want to talk more about the burning process for those who may not be aware, just very briefly. What was involved in this, and how does it work, and why can we not get them back? What happens when we burn tokens?
No, that's an excellent question. So there's a lot of different types of accounts that you have on blockchain chains. So we are based and built on Cosmos SDK. And so you have the standard types of accounts that you might use as a user from your wallet. There are other types of accounts that are called module accounts, and part of what module accounts have the functionality of is the ability to go and burn tokens. And so we built that as part of the ledger upgrades that we had done, a function that can be called from any account that holds tokens,
Right.
and be able to send tokens to that burn contract. And what it then does is it essentially removes them from the total supply that is being counted on the chain. You might also have seen that, there's a inflation sort of mechanism that is built in that mints tokens.
Yes.
It's a very similar kind of function in the bank module. The bank module is the thing that creates that additional supply, but it also has the burn contract to go and remove supply. So it's not unique necessarily to the accounts that were created for the doc sort of distribution. Any account can go and call that a burn contract and burn function and send a bunch of tokens to them, and it takes them out from supply.
I see. Thank you. That's probably just for those who may not be familiar, because it could be something entirely new. We are broadcasting on LinkedIn now. It's a slightly different audience to the traditional Web3 that we used to, so I thought it was worth mentioning. Fraser, the other thing is, now that we've been able to do this, there might be some in the community that are like, well, okay, one, could we do this on an ad hoc basis? And two, can you give us an example scenario of where we might do this might do this again in future to say combat inflation?
Well, it's a. I mean, that burn mechanism could be technically used by anyone. So there is the option. I think I mentioned this was a possibility a while back, is the community pool. I think there's a debate there on I would say in almost every scenario, there's more value when using the community pool for actually getting projects done. That I think for those who haven't seen the video that's gone out, or those that have seen the video that's gone out of us building kind of agentic trust registries, some of that has lent on work from Fraunhofer and their work on Train, and that was funded originally from the community pool. So I think in most scenarios, like that's still going to be how that pool should get used. But in theory, that burn function is available to anyone. If someone wanted to, and I think it would be a pretty rogue but interesting. I think, Matt, you know what I'm about to say is if someone wanted to, and it'd be an interesting experiment, they could run a validator where after they cover their own infrastructure costs, they just burn the rest of the commission. That is something that would also work. So it's available to anyone. I don't know if we should expect what happened. If anyone could remember the kind of attempt to reclaim like Luna, when there was like the Luna burning process where everyone was just burning Luna en masse. I doubt we'll see that, but yeah, it's available if anyone has a reason to use it. Yeah, so it's obviously we had a very specific utility in mind when we did it, when we introduced it for the Docker merger, but it is available if anyone decides to use it for any other function for, again, whatever reason.
Yeah. It'll be I'd be curious to know if anybody decides to pick up on a few things that they could do on that. But as one door closes, that we finalised the dock thing now, it's just a case of onboarding partners on their side, which obviously is then more utility on the network, which contributes to that. Thinking ahead now, so we've got some events coming up. I'm saying you, the both of you, as well as our Chief of Marketing, Eduardo, you'll be heading to EIC. That's in Berlin from May 6th to 9th. We'll be at stand 55. So if you're going there, please stop by and be sure to say hello to Fraser, Anka, and Eduardo. Fraser, you'll also be delivering a keynote yourself, which is Beyond UD, Adoption, Business Models, and Value Creation. That's right, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So looking forward to that, and I think Anchor's on at least 2 panels, I think. So it's going to be a hectic week. I'm assuming you're coming onto those as well. So yeah, keynote's going to be interesting. So we ran the market survey at the start of this year. It's still open. We've deliberately left it open in case we get some additional responses off the back of the keynote at EIC. And so the presentation itself is very much going to show that there is, I think there's been a lot of focus over the last couple of years about EUDI and looking at it as if it's setting loads of these decisions. But actually, if you compare what's going on with EUDI versus what's happening with the SSI, decentralized ID market in general, it's already a small proportion. And I think once private companies get involved, it'll be a even smaller proportion. So some of what it is just some of the keynote is just running through those numbers and demonstrating that off the back of that survey, we could already somewhat put hard numbers against that.
Yes.
But then also off the back of that, we asked one of the questions was very much on, do you expect to monetize credentials? If you do, what does that look like to you? And there's already some lessons we can take from that. And then that spins into the final bit, which is looking at a bit more around business models or a bit more around kind of the infrastructure that's going to be required to go and make this possible. So things like trust registries, things like potentially shifting how credential issuance, credential verification is paid for in terms of fees to software vendors. So I think there's a bunch of moving parts there, but it's and I've got to give a shout out to Eduardo for helping me pull together that this week, because it was pretty frantic. But I think it's come out in a really, really good spot, and looking forward to kind of sharing more of the insights that we've got. And I guess just to repeat that, I think what's cool about the survey and what we can share is we've been able to put hard numbers and data to hunches, and in a way that I don't think anyone else has got access to yet or has done the research on. So it's actually novel in terms of, I think, what we're putting out there, but in terms of like there's data stuff behind it now, which is pretty cool.
It is indeed. So, Anchor, as well as yourself, you're going to be doing it is 2 panels, right? What I've got is from what I'm seeing is the Verifiably I, the New Frontier, and Personhood Credentials from Theory to Practice.
Yeah, so we have one of the panels. I'm a panelist. It is being chaired by Steve McCown from Anonymy, which is one of Cheq's partners. And it's got a very, I think, sort of all-star lineup. We've got Eric Skelton from Adobe. You've got Drummond Reed from Gen Digital, who's obviously one of the very premier people within SSI. And you've got myself and I think a couple of other people. I'm blanking on the other names. And so that one's about personhood credentials, which I think is a massive topic, especially given the context of the big launch event that World had yesterday. So I think it's going to be very topical next week. And then the other one is a panel about Verifiable AI, the New Frontier, where I will be moderating a panel with Evan McMullen from Pravado and Billions Network, Alastair Johnson from Nuggets, and Matthew Brzezinski from Ping Identity, which is, I think, quite an interesting mix of decentralized as well as centralized identity software to be discussing how this applies to verifiable AI. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think they will be quite rapid fire because the panels at EIC are around 20 minutes long each. So that's not a lot of time to get into a whole load of detail. But I hope it's going to be at least high impact and concise stuff that people can walk away with.
I'm sure it will be. When are you actually heading out? When are you heading out, Anga?
Next week, Monday, and then back on Friday, because I think the conference itself is Tuesday till Friday.
Yeah. What about you, Fraser? When are you heading out?
Oh, taking myself off you. The same. Yeah, so heading out on Monday, coming back Friday. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess for me is when you get there, with it being an unconference, so to speak, as well. I'm curious to know what kinds of
No, Matt. There's no unconference part of this one.
Ah, right, okay. Well, anyway, that being said,
everything is scheduled. Like I think it even goes up to like 7 or 8 p.m. in the evenings to fit in all the content. Like it's a lot.
Oh, right, okay. It's going to be
not the same as DICE. If you're thinking of DICE,
I think I got to
similar letters.
I guess what I was curious about as well is things have been very busy internally for a while now, and we've got a lot to show off and talk about, as well as content and other stuff that's going to be, going to be coming down the pipeline soon. Is I guess what kind of conversations do you think you'll be most focused on when you head out to these events? Like, when you're speaking to people, what is it you want to gauge the most of? Fraser.
Interestingly, myself, Anchor, and Eduardo had a chat on exactly this about 3 hours ago. We think it's going to be roughly in 2 buckets. So one is business models, credential monetization around EIDAS and beyond. So related to like EUDI, the wallet, but yeah, providing kind of revenue models for that. It's a topic that last year had one presentation, I think, on by Joran Frick from I think Deloitte. This time around, though, there's my session, there's a few others. Martin Koppinger is leading one, so there's quite a few. And I think the other bucket is about agentic trust. It's coming round very, very quickly. We're seeing that on the client front, but it's coming around very, very quickly. So, I think those are roughly the 2 buckets. And I think it also fits the attendance there as well. Like it's EIC from this perspective is kind of, at least from like the Web2 enterprise angle, probably the ideal conference for this, because it is a blend of everyone building kind of identity and decentralized ID in Europe, and then there's just been a massive wave looking into kind of agents and agentic trust. So I'd say those are probably the big 2 for me, but I don't know if Anka's got an addition.
Do you?
I think that covers a lot of it.
Just covers it. All right, no worries. Well, thanks very much. Hopefully we'll find out some interesting download when you come back and you share everything internally. I'll be looking forward to that. I just want to move on now to the Dora Hacks Hackathon. Some may not be aware, we have been running a hackathon recently with Dora Hacks, Verida, and also Sprite Plus. We put in a prize pool of approximately $50,000 in check tokens to create identity-driven verifiable AI. Pre-registration opened in February, the 19th of February, and we've just had an extended deadline for 2 weeks, which was originally on the 2nd of May, so tomorrow, but then now that's been extended to the 16th. So if you have, you still have time, actually, if those who are building, get building, and I'm sure you can create some more fantastic stuff. We've already seen some interesting bits and pieces come in, but I guess there's a lot I've not seen yet, Angus. I know you'll probably have a much better idea of what's going on in terms of these submissions. But before we get on to what that is, why the extension? What was the main reason for the extension? Anka.
Do you want to take that, Fraser? Because I actually was on holiday while this happened.
Yeah, well done, Matt. Well done for stitching us up. So the reason was basically Verida, I think, had rolled out. Obviously, Verida put up a pot or a bounty as part of the hackathon. They had, I think, rolled out something recently. Either it was I can't remember if it was just extremely new and had new features, or if there were also some bugs that they were working through. Either way, basically, there wasn't long enough between when they made the release and all the fixes and when the hackathon deadline was to allow people to actually build with it. So they were getting a lot of requests from hackers to be like, I really want to do this and I want to use it in this capacity, but I currently can't because I either don't have the time to, or it's not working in the way that I expect. So it was a very easy decision to just lengthen it out by 2 weeks and give people much more time to build and just leverage all the tooling. And I think transparently as well, we have seen a massive increase in the number of people inside the last week or so, maybe fortnight, appearing through our various tools, whether it's
this is what I was alluding to, by the way.
Yeah. So basically there's been this huge influx. And so I think obviously they're could argue a bit late to the party, but in the interest of getting the best outcomes and the best projects through, it makes sense to give that a little bit more time because everyone benefits all around, to be honest.
I've also seen a fair amount of interesting sort of projects or people who've been building in public along on X and on Discord who've been sort of asking questions. It is fairly typical in a hackathon that it gets promoted more or prioritized the closer it gets to the submission deadline. So when you have platforms like Dora Hacks, I think it's the sort of last 1 to 2 weeks when people go, oh, cool, the deadline is fairly soon. We should probably go and try on this. So it felt like the right thing, especially given some of the quality of these people that are building along in public that we had seen, that we wanted to go and accommodate and make sure that they have the chance to go and submit very high quality submissions.
I see. Thank you. Yeah, that was the main thing I was alluding to, is the fact that we have actually seen an increase of people come later on, as well as an increase in members for Czech Studio as well, right? That was what I was mainly alluding to. There's people come in vast number. It's like, right, okay, the right thing to do is to extend it here so they've got more build time. And so I'd be interested to see how that goes. So yes, sorry, I thought somebody was going to say something. So yes, that's the extension. You can find out more on our socials. We've just posted some update there on our X account. I just want to move on now to one of our recently joined ventures with Dia, which is the Decentralized AI Alliance. And that was founded by a gentleman called Lou Kerner, which was originally from Crypto Mondays, if I remember correctly. That's right. What I want to know more about is, what was the interest in Dia? Why are we there? And what are the mutual benefits of being in an organization of Dia? So Fraser, I'm just going to start with yourself, because I didn't actually hear about it at the start. It was you that presented this to me. I'd never heard of this one. And then you're like, okay, let's have a look at this. So why Dia?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we came across I think there were a couple of associations at the time. So we took a look at, I think, the two. And Dia was by far and away the one that was looking at actually practically getting things done, which I think was the reason that we joined. I won't name which the other one was, but Dia very much the responses were quick, it was open, it was transparent, and there are multiple subgroups now being spun up for various different topics and subjects, and all of them are minuted. They all have actions coming out of them. And I think the other part is obviously it's a group of like-minded individuals who are all working in this space and looking for collaboration, looking to move things forward. I think one of the big areas, or one of the reasons I was personally keen on joining is obviously like everything. The video that we just released around trust registries for agents works best if there is like an industry standard or expectation, as well as an industry body setting kind of expectations for what good looks like in terms of agents. And so whilst we can define what that looks like, it is much better to do that in concert with other people who are also building in the same space as well. And probably the last part of that is we're obviously, we've said this in multiple casts and AMAs before, like we're experts in trust and decentralized ID, and then obviously the payments credentials side of things. The bit where we need more input on is agents, and those, so getting access to people building those agents is really helpful for us from a product and a strategic perspective, because otherwise we're kind of building blind, which doesn't make any sense. So, and thus far it's been very, very it's been really productive in terms of just the sheer amount of input and stuff that we get.
Yeah, there is quite a few interesting topics. I mean, the ones that actually caught my attention were around sort of governance and commerce. Like straight away, I was like, there's going to be some really interesting stuff to come out of this. But I guess what we're going to see more of as well is a lot around, I guess, like the legal side. Like I'm curious to know how that pans out, because as we see more and more of these agents come out with, you know, in business and people's everyday lives, it's going to have some, you know, there's going to have to be more control in place. So I thought there was some interesting discussions going on there. But yes, we'll be, I'm guessing, sharing more of the developments from Daya and our contributions as time passes. Okay, Mr. Banerjee, I want to talk about now, while you were away, we rolled out version 3.119 of the protocol release as part of proposal 64. To push out on mainnet. We did actually have a great voter turnout as well. 74% of the network participants actually came and joined and voted. And we had a downtime, I think it was around about 15 minutes before we started actually reaching consensus on the network. That was actually pretty fast, to be fair. You know, I know you expected around about that time, I think Fraser as well, but you know, that was good. But can we talk a little bit more about what's actually included in version 3.1.9 and what that's laying the foundations for the next version?
Absolutely. It is a continuation of the work that we had done in supporting regulated stablecoins or micro-regulated stablecoins through a feature called fee abstraction that works through with the Osmosis DEX to allow people to not necessarily hold check tokens, but to pay a particular fee for the identity transactions using something, a micro-regulated stablecoin like USDC. And then it sort of converts that in the fly in the background to the native token necessary to power the transaction. So it's taken a couple of different steps to go and do this, because as it turns out, I think we are one of the first projects in Cosmos SDK ecosystem to even go and use the fee abstraction feature. So there's a lot of elements that we need to discover through actual experimentation and working through the problem on the live network. And the objective of this is, I think, overall to support that vision that we've laid out in the roadmap, to say the actual transactions themselves, some of our customers, they want to do that in micro-regulated stablecoins because of regulatory reasons, but to also go in and fix and denominate the cost of the transactions to stable dollar values, because at the moment they're fixed to floating values, with the check token. So that doesn't necessarily remove any of the security and the utility that is added by the check token itself, but the interface that customers have with the network becomes a lot simpler to deal with if they're dealing with stable prices and stable coins to make the payments. So that is still in sort of like, progress. It also tees up a bit of the work that we've been doing in the background is to migrate to the next version of Cosmos SDK to enable that sort of Oracle type price feed that can help us have the stable dollar values for every single transaction, and which we've already started work on. So in the very sort of like, next coming weeks, months, we'll also see like, new ledger releases that we go support that.
To what extent might that Oracle be available to, say, other projects? Is there something that they could leverage themselves as well, instead of it just being down limited to checked, or is it just restricted to our network?
So there's a couple of different approaches that we are looking at on this. The Oracle itself would not be something that we develop from scratch, but it would use one of the oracles that already exist within the Cosmos SDK ecosystem. There's a couple of different versions of those out there that provide the type of pricing feeds that we'd want to go and fix the stable dollar pricing. But it's a bit early days. We are first focusing on the Cosmos SDK upgrade and the programmability that sort of brings in using a sort of advancements to the programming language and stack that the new version of Cosmos SDK builds in. And then we'd probably be looking in the next couple of weeks, months on the Oracle feature itself.
Thank you. We're looking forward to that. I just want to move on as well, just because I thought it's slightly relevant, just to the recent Google announcement to support credentials in mobile phone wallets. I'm guessing you've seen that, right, Anka?
Yes. So a large part of what the announcement that you're alluding to is the Google Android team very recently came out talking about how they're supporting digital credentials natively within Google Wallet, and part of like the standards like OpenID for VC and so on. A large driver behind this is the EU Digital Wallets Initiative, the EU Digital ID Wallets Initiative. In particular, Germany's innovation arm called SprintD has been running a competition, which includes some smaller companies like partners of ours, including Animo, that have received public funding, as well as larger companies like Google and Samsung that did not receive public funding. And the way that the competition was set up is everybody who got public funding, the smaller companies, would have to eventually go and open source all of the work that they were doing. The larger companies that were participating of their own accord and their own funding didn't necessarily have to do that, but I think there was social pressure to go ahead and do it anyway. So I think it's a big leap. The current mechanism that Google has described about including in the Android operating system does not include decentralized identifiers, but I think that will come in due course. I think that the very early version of what they have released just doesn't support that spec, but I think it's a huge leap that they are starting to include in various different kinds of digital credential and verifiable credential formats natively within Android Wallet, as well as wallet apps that can go and access that from the trusted element in Android wallets. The big evolution that I hope that this spurs on is it prompts Apple to go and do the same thing, because Apple has not yet engaged in some of the work that is being done in the EU Digital Wallets Initiative. And I think given the structure and the work that a lot of the EU wallets are doing, they wouldn't necessarily want to see this locked in only just to the Apple Wallet or the Google Wallet app, but they would want it to be accessible to third-party applications as well. Because that is an action they have taken with Apple Pay, for example. Like the EU Digital Markets Act and the Digital Services Act they've asked for a lot of these large gatekeeping sort of platforms to open up access to third-party applications that can also go and build, let's say, payment applications. So yeah, it's exciting news.
It is. What's the difference, Anga, of having a train ticket now in my Google Wallet for traveling or something else? Is it possible that you could have some kind of format that could represent a credential like in there now? What's the difference? Because I've got my train tickets there, and I've always wondered, like, surely I could get a credential in there, right?
That's a fantastic question. So the way that you'd have train tickets or any other sort of loyalty cards in there right now is you have to either have a barcode or a QR code or an NFC. NFC is extremely rare, but I've seen it, like, in a couple of supermarkets in France, for example. But what it's doing there is that the entire information that is necessary for the ticket checker on the train is encoded in that QR code. And it's not necessarily a verifiable credential. There's also, therefore, a very strong limit on how much data can be captured within that. Because if you have a barcode is usually just an integer number. And then you need some sort of third-party or backend system to read the number and understand what does this number mean. And similarly for QR codes as well, you can have very basic information in there, like a booking ID or booking reference, and then they need some kind of third-party application to look up in their internal database, what does this mean? So the difference with what is being spoken about with the new release that Google's putting into Android is they will natively support verifiable credentials, which support a far richer and larger amount of data that's more flexible to more scenarios, and not just looking at like a number or an integer or a booking reference that you then need as a separate centralized database to go and look up anyway.
Thank you. I was curious to know a little bit more about it, but it definitely sounds exciting. And yes, I noticed your comment earlier today about seeing if Apple would actually jump on this as well, now that Google have explicitly stated that they're opening support for it. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. I don't know if you've got anything to add on that, Fraser, before we move on to the next juicy technical bits, because I've got some questions on you. I'm pretty excited about the MCP stuff that we've been doing. So we've just recently announced our agentic trust solution. We've pushed out a blog. Sal, I'm just going to load this blog up on another tab, if you wouldn't mind, please, when you get the prompt. If you could just throw that up there and share that with the with our viewers. So Fraser, tell me a little bit more about I know we've pushed a lot. There's going to be a lot of people that will know. People will have already heard the term MCP, but for those that haven't, what is MCP, and what does it mean for us in our MCP server, in our trust model?
To be honest, Anchor is by far the best authority on MCP, and then I can probably chime in with a wider, I guess what I'm
business bits,
Sorry?
Yeah, I was thinking from the business bits as well, though. But
well,
right,
this is the thing. I think if Anchor leads in with kind of MCP and kind of what it enables from a trust perspective, and then I can probably do the business side of things.
Go for it.
Which I think, yeah,
sure.
makes a bit more,
I can take it.
Cool.
Yeah, I can take it from there. So I think we've been talking about the need for credentials to go and trust AI agents and whom they've been developed by. Whom do they go and represent? What are they good at? Et cetera, for a while, as well as how you might have credentials on behalf of a user and representing the permissions that a user has given an AI agent. And the distinction is you have ChatGPT, which is created by someone, and then you have Matt's version of ChatGPT, or the specific instance of ChatGPT that Matt is using from his desktop. So we've been exploring a lot of different ways in which how verifiable credentials and decentralized ID could be used by that. The challenge is that in the absence of a common specification, it's hard to create something proprietary. Like, people would have to integrate with our proprietary tools to go use it. And that is the problem that Model Context Protocol from Anthropic solves. It's a mechanism through which you can describe what tools your AI agent should have access to. Now, some of these tools could be to go access things like Jira or GitHub or Google Docs. It could go and access databases. But what we built is one of the world's first MCP tools that allows AI agents to go and interact with digital identity and decentralized identity. So we've done a bit of an early release on this. The recent stuff that we have shown is issuing a set of verifiable attestations or verifiable accreditations, as they're called. And in this example, we simulated an AI industry body like the DAIAA, which we were talking about, going and issuing a verifiable accreditation to the creator of an AI agent. And that can have like many different levels, because they might delegate the authority to issue these verifiable accreditations to different people. But you can actually go and try this out. You can install Claude Desktop, which supports this very rich and new protocol. It was a huge topic at Internet Identity Workshop, or IIW, the conference that I went to a couple of weeks ago. And I think people in the decentralized ID space are quite excited about how it helps add that sort of trust layer. The AI agents will need to be able to understand what verifiable credentials mean, what decentralized identifiers mean. How do they go and read and verify a verifiable credential? And that is what our MCP tooling that we have released goes and enables for people. Fraser, you've been having a lot of discussions with, I think, AI companies as well in the meantime while I've been gone. I don't know if you want to add something about how this is resonating with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what I'm finding is almost the market's like splitting into two in terms of how they're looking to use our tooling. So from what I can see, the Web3 more crypto lot are not necessarily using MCP as much, but they want to say use Check Studio to issue credentials, and then either something like Train or individual SDK, so then go and check the veracity of those credentials in the trust registries, which was a surprise because I thought it would just be like everyone using MCP. Whereas it seems like the more Web2/enterprise is more looking to MCP. So it's almost like splitting into two. So a lot of the earlier conversations I've been having are very much on the like Web3 crypto side, and they've been just like, okay, if we issue trust registries, we can have, for example, like the frameworks are starting to look at reputation systems for the builders that they have on their platforms. So that if you're, let's say you're a user and you're looking to use an agent, you can then check what the reputation of that builder is. So it's not necessarily like actually checking the agent itself or using MCP itself, but like just having this like reputation system, which to be honest is something that we spoke about with Creds like maybe a year or two ago, but it's just coming around in a different area. There's others looking to do something similar where they want to issue audit reports or security audit reports to frameworks or agents such that they can be surfaced. So I'd say like the market's kind of like splitting into two. I think one of the most valuable things, certainly for me, and I think for a lot of people, is just being able to surface those trust registries like directly into Claude, into a model, and into an agent, and then see it diagrammed out has been like worth its weight in gold. Because it's just so easy to put in front of people and be like, that's what this looks like. This is what this whole thing behind the scenes is about. And now I think we've pulled together like you were saying, I think this is one of the first ones out there, and it's certainly, I think, one of the most. If we look at trust registries and everything that's sitting behind it, with the model that or our implementation of trust registries, which obviously has been worked closely or collaboratively with the European Blockchain Services Infrastructure team. Then there's all the stuff with Train. Like it's really built in a kind of standards and specifications focused way, where we've got proof points and we've got backing for kind of all the architecture all the way down, in a way that we haven't necessarily just like made something up and called it a trust registry for agents. Like it's using things that other people are using, but in a combination that is entirely novel. And I think that's part of the reason why it's gone so quickly, is because we've been able to leverage patterns and technologies that have existed out there. So yeah, it's been great to see it from just having it visually kind of shown, because a lot of them haven't had that so far. But it's, I think, definitely helping on the Web2 side of conversations, where MCP is just the dominant tooling for this, like by quite some distance. So yeah, it's all coming together really, really nicely.
I actually found it fascinating when that flow was just generated for the first time, and you could actually see exactly what was happening or had happened in real time throughout that flow being executed in Claude. Which brings me, I guess, to my next question around this. So we've done it in Claude, and I guess if we think about other MCP supporting models, how easy is it for a developer to plug in our MCP server functionality into another supporting model? Is it pretty straightforward? Just a case of, does it include altering some of the prompts? I know Claude takes prompts by file at the moment in our example. Is it literally just plug and play, Anka?
It's meant to be. So it's less to do about the model itself. It's more to do with the application that is surfacing the model. So like the desktop app that you have. Although OpenAI has announced support that they will be back in March, I believe that they will be supporting MCP as well. Google and DeepMind have made a similar announcement. As far as I know, they haven't actually released that yet, but that's the general idea, that it should be completely plug and play across other kinds of desktop apps. Now, the Claude desktop app is not the only MCP client. Like you can also use it with the command line Claude agent that you have, and I think there's 3 or 4 other sort of like MCP clients as well that people have been building that are all open source, but a bit less mature than the options directly from Anthropic, because it was just the first one to have started off on that front. But yeah, I think that's one of the powerful aspects of this particular tooling, is that it is meant to be quite mix and match across all of the other models and all of the other model applications that are out there as well.
Lovely, thank you, Anka. Alex has just actually done a sort of some commentary over a video demo that was recorded internally. Sal, I've just put it up on the share screen. If you wouldn't mind, please, could you just throw that up? Let me just give that a refresh there. So
hey guys,
I'm not going
Alex
to play
here.
it, but essentially what I'd like you to do is, if you wouldn't mind, Anka, just simply, could you talk us through sort of in the demo that it's been recorded, exactly what is happening with the agent, what's being verified and accredited for?
Yeah, so like, this is the bit that I was mentioning before about simulating a verifiable accreditation that is issued by an industry body or association that goes to the creator of an agent, that goes and captures what sort of model the agent uses, what sort of governance framework is that agent acting under, and so on. And what you will see in the demo is that when the user goes and asks the agent, like, show me the credentials that you have received, it pulls that credential up from the wallet that is attached to that agent, and then goes and displays like the contents that it's related to. It says these are the decentralized IDs that it's related to. This is the schema. This is the governance framework. And even just goes and shows like a visual sort of like, depiction of it, I believe, at some point. So yeah, I think it's to go to that, aspect that we've been calling know your agent,
Yes.
which is similar to KYC or KYB. If you are interacting with agents online, it doesn't just matter for human to agent interactions, but also agent to agent interactions, because your AI agent is probably going to go and hire other AI agents to carry out other specialized tasks. Your AI agent might stumble across and say, actually, I need to go and file like, accounting or taxes. So it goes and searches online, comes across another AI agent, and it's probably going to go and ask that AI agent to say, prove to me what sort of governance frameworks are you operating under? What sort of accreditations have you received? An AI agent can hold accreditations from multiple bodies or multiple agencies, the same way that you as an individual could have many different things in your wallet, attesting to something about yourself from various different government bodies or agencies. So yeah, like have a spin and try it out, but it visualizes the example of like how a know your agent flow might work with a human user. But what we are, I think, also quite excited about is how this expands into the agent to agent use case.
Yeah, it almost sounds in simple terms like you could describe it as like a permissioning model as well, right? It's like you can and can't do this, but then that could go into so many different avenues. I mean, I've seen something recently that was shared in the community actually about Visa actually supporting agent payments as well. I mean, it's like it's everything's accelerating in so many different ways at the moment. It's almost like it's getting ready to sort of hyper converge at this point and just explode. So it's the identity side of things for me. I think are absolutely essential. I don't believe that AI agents, for the most part, without this trust layer, like I wouldn't be comfortable using them if they weren't accountable, if it wasn't traceable, if I couldn't see exactly what it was doing or make sure I could alter it in any way and made sure it stuck to how it was handling my data. There would be no way I would be giving my data. I mean, I don't know how you would feel about that. I mean, without how would you interact with an agent that was you would just seemingly ask for your information and you would just give it in a prompt box, there you go, I'm going to do with what I promise? Is it safe? Where's it stored? It's like it doesn't sit too comfortably with me. But anyway,
yeah, and I think that was MasterCard rather than Visa that
what I felt was Visa that I'd read. Yeah, okay.
That it released the Visa released, I think, a stablecoin partnership with Bridge very recently, but it's MasterCard that released the agentic payment system. And look, that makes sense. Like, there's a similar one that has been done by Stripe as well. And they're good at just moving money from one place to another. But should your agent go move that money or pay that amount or spend on a certain topic, are the kinds of problems that we're trying to solve with the decentralized sort of trust registries and work that we've been doing. Answering the should it do that question rather than how does it do that question.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, we'll see how that goes in the end. Okay, so I just want to start wrapping this up a little bit now, gentlemen. I hope you don't mind. We've got 5 minutes left. There are some community questions that have come in just about some generic stuff. You've noticed they might be in the bottom of the document there. Are you okay taking a few before we wrap this up? Okay,
Yep,
so
power through it.
no worries. So I guess this one again is relating to, like I think it's a dashboard. When is the API coming out for DIDs and DLRs? I know the team is busy, but wondering as it would help share the checked utility concept. Could someone make a simple dashboard with these numbers to see growth? I mean, you've mentioned this previously, Anger. I know we've been busy with a lot of different things. But do we have any indication of when other people might be able to consume these? I guess is the question.
Fraser, do you want to take this or?
Yeah, I can do. I think it comes down to. By the way, I think we can hear Sal like laughing
Sal,
every so
yes,
often in the
Sal's not
background.
muted. He's
No,
laughing.
he isn't. Every so often we
I
hear
don't
a
know how
giggle.
I don't know how that's coming along.
No, same. Um, so I think that the snag on basically what it comes down to is priorities, and to go and do APIs and dashboards and stuff basically means that it's taking us away from productive work. So that's the big question on our side is it's just a balance. So ideally, it's when we'll come around to some downtime. When that is, who knows? Because to give some transparency of what's going on behind the scenes at the moment. Like we've been heads down building MCP and getting all this agent stuff hooked up together. We've got an initial, obviously, version of that which does, I would say, initially what we wanted to do, but I think there's a lot more that we could have immediate value to. We're in client conversations around people immediately adopting that same technology, which then brings us on to like a second bucket of work, which is we're doing a lot of work now about supporting people coming onto the network in migrations, whether that is onto testnet or onto main. Some of that is fixing little bugs in the background, but a lot of it is just like helping people on board, snagging stuff, this kind of stuff. And then that's even ignoring the work that we're doing on the protocol release, which Tassos is leading up with one of our partners. So like it's one we love to do, but it's also a case of like if we're going to do it, something else is going to take a hit. And at the moment, almost all that stuff is client facing. Like it's actual stuff that is going to end up in the end of with users. So it's a difficult one. It's a case where you just never have enough people. Like the team is never large enough for the amount of like work that we have coming through. So for us, it's something that we want to do. It's on the backlog, but it's probably going to have to wait until there's like an actual bit of downtime. Otherwise, it's going to delay something that is in demand directly from partners or clients.
Similar answer. Yeah, similar answer for like, the top accounts feature on Explorer. So bit of backstory on that is we had Forbol that used to be running our Explorer and had built the software. But Forbol itself has, I think, stepped away from supporting the Block Explorer indexing software for a while. And so we did have a quick look at like, what's going on there. And we have somewhat of an idea behind what's breaking the Explorer, but we would have to go and change and upgrade it as the new version of Cosmos SDK comes out anyway. And it didn't seem like a simple fix. If it was just let's kick the tires and restart it and it starts working again, great. But it does actually require a bit more of an investigation. So like Fraser said, we will try and get back to it when we can, but we don't want to drop any sort of customer related requests in sort of like the process.
Indeed. All right. Thanks. Hopefully that gives you some insights to your question there. I'm just conscious that we are at the top of the hour actually, and we should probably wrap this up because our time here is actually fairly limited. I did just want to go through a recap of what it was that we've been doing through in April. But before I get onto that, before you start your travels, Anchor Fraser, do you have any closing thoughts or anything interesting that we might expect, I don't know, in the coming weeks, certainly from calls that we've been or may or may not have had today?
Oof. I think it really comes down at that point around people onboarding, and onboarding across the suite. So whether that is core identity functionality, whether that is the agentic trust side of things, like it's heating up. And so, I think, I don't know, looking forward to it. So it's just been busy, and I think the other side of things is it's just I guess on all three, everything is just heating up. Like it's obviously the EID stuff we kind of knew was going to heat up, but I think the agentic trust side of things has taken us all by surprise. And just how quickly that market is moving. And I think we said this previously. I think we came into things like eDenver at the start of this year with like, we think there's a problem. We're pretty sure there's a problem. We know that we've got the solution components to build it, but do people building recognize that? Do they see that they've got a problem as well? And I think across at eDenver and since, it's been a resounding yes. Like, people know that there's a problem there. They know they need to go and fix it. They know it, to your point around like proliferation of agents and would you trust them? They know it's going to get worse. And so suddenly it's all coming around at the right time. And now it's just trying to keep up with demand. Going back to that question, how do we prioritize work internally? How do we prioritize?
You totally played that down, dude. Good effort. You did, though. Well, thanks very much for joining us today, Fraser. I just want to wish you safe travels while you're heading out to EIC. I'll be looking forward to your updates when you come back. But Sal, if you just slide Fraser out. Anka, do you have any closing thoughts for us before you start your travels as well?
Looking at the agenda for EIC, I think similar to IAW, I want to deliver a sort of call to arms to wake people up in the industry about the coming sort of trust and reliability problem that AI agents bring across. I think the message is starting to get through, but to go and impress upon people, and especially a crowd, I think that is very sort of like, enterprise focused, I think, is sort of my goal for next week. And excited to see how people respond to that.
Yeah, I know you're fighting a few battles in the shadows, Anka. Keep them going, and we look forward to seeing how they develop in the end. But thanks very much for taking the time to join us today. Safe travels when you go. I shall see you on your return. Sal, if you could just slide out Anka, please, if you wouldn't mind. Okay, everybody, I'd just like to take the time to thank you for those that have tuned in to what we've had to share today. I just wanted to give a summary of what we've discussed. So we talked about the upcoming event at EIC that's happening in Berlin. We've also shared the details on the hackathon extension, which has been extended by 2 weeks. We talked about our recent joining of the Decentralized AI Agent Alliance. We mentioned the token burn, and there is a lot more to talk about with MCP. I just wish we could have had more time to cram it in. If you haven't seen our latest MCP demo, please head onto our X account, check the latest post, and you'll see it from our product manager, Alex Tweeddale, giving a great overview exactly what's happened, which is partly what Anka has alluded to today. And a quick summary of April, we had more than 10 tier 1 and 2 publications, including Cointelegraph, Blockstart, Crypto News, and syndication by Masari, CoinGecko, and Binance, and many other tier 3s. We've got some much better network monitoring in place, so we can find out exactly what's happening in terms of mainnet adoption, which has been pushed by Doc and others. We're also in the process of onboarding other Web3 AI companies. A lot of content, 3 new blogs, 3 announcements, as well as audio bites and EMA recordings, 2 new web pages, multiple speaking and podcast opportunities, and as well as the videos we have just dropped, with a whole lot more to come in the coming weeks. Again, for more information, you can view our website, where you can view all of our latest blogs with links to our socials and other media content. I'm Matt Arnold. This is Checked, and we are the infrastructure for the trusted data economy. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Sal, load the outro, please.